welcome everybody. Beautiful to see familiar faces, newly acquainted faces returning. Only moments in the meeting, and some connections that are joining the dots, and that's sort of how we arrive here at this particular point. Each and every one of these Tea with Mo's, any event that we do is really special to us because it's a one-off event. The people that come here, you add your own energies, you create this experience. So we get to remember this experience with you all. And that's the uniqueness of them. And when we can see them in these moments, we then might start to be able to see them outside of these moments and go, everywhere I go is a unique experience. It's a one-off event. And maybe I can be more and more present with it and see the gifts and the value that is present within it as well. Even the pushing and the pulling of it too.
I'd like to just take a moment. I know this is being recorded, but just as we arrived here, and Kit really gave me the signalling unbeknownst to him, but I'd like for you all, because I'm looking out at this beautiful sea of faces. So a gesture that Kit did was to look around at each other. So just for these moments, connect with one another. Thank you.
Yeah. What a beautiful observation. Thank you for that gift as well.
Thank you.
Kit's a really interesting person because we've only really had a couple of interactions, and there's been a wealth of profundity that comes from the experience, and one of the things is to slow down and notice how much life exists in between the breaths, and to actually connect with each other is something that's we in a sense have forgotten because we're so driven by time, moving towards something rather than noticing what's already present. This connection with others. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Kit. Beautiful. So, helicopter ride.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Tea with Mo, lectures on non-duality, Inner Light Meditation Centre, philosophy based on non-duality. That's pretty much everything is one. And whatever that means, it contains and it doesn't contain. I just did a video today trying to truncate it, and I was listening to Ram Dass, and he said that the universe is the manifestation of the one. Wow, that's pretty intense. And so I then added to it because it's as much as it's a manifestation of the one from a space perspective, let's look at that from a time perspective. That means that everything is happening all in one moment. So it's this huge space and yet nothing all happening in one little moment. And that encompasses non-duality, or it's just the beginning of it. So we continue to remind people of this concept that you are consciousness having a human experience. And part of our learnings and our seekings and our explorations is to understand the human experience. We're here, why not? And not only understand it from a human perspective, but also understand it from a consciousness perspective. So we go non-dual, then we step into dual, we have this experience, and then we pull it back out into non-dual. And that's where we head with Tea with Mo. We're going to talk about the human experience through psychological theories and concepts, let's call them that, and even therapies that both Ali and I use. Through Poly Vagal, internal family systems, and maybe even a little bit of attachment theory going into positive and negative cognitions. So it's a real suite of things there. Last fortnight we did Poly Vagal. So could you give a summary of that?
Yes, because some of you have not either listened to the video or weren't here 2 weeks ago, but just a very quick summary, and just to know that video is accessible to you, and that is on Maurice's Facebook page. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So, but a very quick summary of it is polyvagal. Poly meaning more than one, vagal in reference to the vagus nerve, which is the 10th cranial nerve, the longest nerve, and it runs from the brainstem down to pretty much all of the organs in the trunk, in the gut, and up to the face. It derives from the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic meaning we don't have to think about it, it just happens for us. And there are two branches of the sympathetic branch and the parasympathetic branch. So in the parasympathetic branch, there are two branches that happen from there. There is what is called a dorsal vagal and a ventral vagal. In a ventral vagal, we are open and connected because we feel safe. There are more cues of safety in the system, and we are able to connect to others. We are able to listen clearly. We are able to have a low heart rate, and we are able to feel we're okay in the world, and you're okay in the world. The other branch of the parasympathetic is the dorsal vagal, which is when there are so many cues of danger that our sympathetic branch, our fight or flight branch, is not going to be enough to keep us safe. We go into a dorsal vagal, which is a complete shutdown. So, and in this, we are conserving energy. We are protecting through collapse or a submit. That's basically a very quick overview of polyvagal. The other things about it is that we present differently, so depending on what state you are in, and we did it before where it's on the ladder. So where we are here in complete safety, some signs of danger, we come into a fight or flight, and when that is not able to serve us, we're not able to run away or to fight back, then we come into the most primitive form of protection, which is collapse, or it's in the dorsal vagal. There's actually two sections of this, which is complete collapse or it's submit. And so the way that we present ourselves to others, what's going on in the inside of the system, what we think and how we act is all dependent on what state we are in. So I'm curious, for those that were here 2 weeks ago, have you been able to notice the differences in your state shifts? And this is the beginning of starting to become aware of what state am I in, so that then we can help to bring some understanding around that, and then know what to do. And then we like to marry this with the internal family systems model. So when we have more cues of danger compared to safety, this is where our parts have been generated. Do you want to speak of that?
Yeah, cool. Thank you. That'd be great. Thank you.
Apparently I talk too much.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I was asking, can I have an opportunity to speak?
Sure.
So not inferring that you speak too much. You just ask for what you want. Yeah. A part of me was asking for what it was. Sure. So parts work, internal family systems, Richard Swartz. We've spoken about it many times. We've got a couple of videos around it. This is a concept model of the mind that both Ali and I really love because of the loving, nurturing dialogue that's created within the system. Right, so we're creating secure attachment of our parts to self-energy rather than I need you to do this so I feel safe. Yeah, so attachment theory came from John Bowlby around the 1970s, psychologist, and it's the attachment that we have to our primary caregiver. Now, attachment isn't love, attachment is safety. So secure attachment, insecure, avoidant, insecure, anxious, and then we have disorganised. So you categorise them as 4 different states. Yeah. Parts work comes into the perspective from when particular experiences that we have, and sometimes they can be adverse childhood experiences, or when the psyche, the emotions get wounded from an experience that we don't fully understand, and we don't have the bigger, loving, stronger hands around us to give us context to it. Primarily in the early stages of our development, we're egocentric, so we look at everything that's happening in our world as either we're good children or we're bad children. But we don't understand that someone else is having a bad day and they've yelled at us, or someone else is intoxicated because they're using that to avoid the shame and guilt that they have from something that happened 40 years ago. We've just got no idea. So the system, the way that it looks at itself is, this is my fault, and if it's my fault, I'm a bad person, I've done the wrong thing, I'll never get anything right. So see how now we're starting to create negative cognitions, or cognitions about self, that give us an understanding, a potential understanding of why something happened. If we've got the older, wiser friends and peers around us who come and go, no, they're just having a bad day, you're not that, this is, and so see how they can be a part of the repair process. Yeah. So rupture and repair
and
is
the
very
understanding,
important. Context and the understanding of it, yeah. So parts are actually created at these particular times to protect these, in a sense, negative cognitions, or protect the fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, the fear that I'm not loved, that I'll never be loved, I'm not connected, I'll be alone, whatever it is. So these parts come in from a protective perspective. When we start to look at it from a polyvagal lens, what we're starting to recognise is that the dorsal vagal and the sympathetic nervous system on the ladder of polyvagal is more so where our parts will be presenting, because this is fear. They're not safe. There's some threat. Yeah. So if you're noticing that you're in this state of the polyvagal, you might then start to notice the nuances of different particular parts. There's a frustrated part, there's an angry part, there's a part that needs to get shit done. We need to keep on moving. We can't stay in this. We need to make a decision. See how it needs to move. So that's SNS, mobilising.
SNS, sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
A branch of the autonomic nervous system.
Yes. Right. Now, each part has its own belief system. It's got its own personality. Let's look at them as sub-personalities, right? Each part has its own belief system, its own dialogue, its own narrative, yeah? Cognitive, or the cognitions that are going to come from it. It has its own feeling state, right? So if you know what guilt is, you know where you feel guilt. That's how I know I've got guilt. I know that I've got guilt because there's a cognition that comes with it. There's some words that are attached to it, and it believes something in particular. And then it'll have its own series of behaviours. So these are like mini-me's. So you've got a bunch of mini-me's running around inside you, looking at the information that's coming from your environment and going, is this a threat or is it safe? Can I speak and can I be truly, speak my truth? And today I just put up a video of you lie until you feel safe enough to tell the truth. And this was from a parts perspective. Yeah? So parts have their own experience in a sense. We can locate them in relation to polyvagal, and we can speak to them in a particular way, and we can also use the polyvagal ladder to potentially shift from one part to another. Do you want to maybe talk about that a little bit more?
Well, sure. But the first is awareness.
Yes.
Because otherwise we are speaking from the parts. So if I am in... These parts were created when we were young. And they stay with us. We never get rid of our parts, and nor do we want to ever get rid of our parts. Our parts have been created to protect us. They are in service of survival. every action is done in service of survival. Because the self, with the capital S, wasn't available. As a child, we don't develop self-energy. We need to have co-regulation. We need to have another to be able to help us, to be that regulator for us. And so these parts come up. And so when there are more cues of danger, then we are coming into the parts. And when we speak from the parts, because we are not aware, hello part. Hello part, thank you for keeping me safe, thank you for being present.
Yeah.
And so the first step is awareness. The first step is to recognize, I've got a little bit of, butterflies in the tummy here, I'm sweating. That's part of the sympathetic nervous system being activated here. I'm in a little bit of fight or flight. And so I can have more, when I've got more self-energy, when I can trust in the self, and I can start to then speak to those parts and give it context and say, it's okay. Like, I know that you feel a little in danger at the moment, because here I am presenting, I'm speaking, there's fear. Those parts are fearful that I might say the wrong thing here. Those parts of me, my default parts, typically when I'm in too much threat, I go into shutdown and I don't know what to say. And I lose the clarity in what's being said. And I find it hard to know what to say next, because my parts, and if I'm not aware of it, then I'm speaking from the parts, and I am the one who can't get it right. I am the one that never says the right thing. I am the one that doesn't know what to say. Yeah? But when I have awareness, hello part, yes, I'm noticing that I'm sweating here. I'm noticing that I've got a bit of anxiety here. I'm noticing that, I needed to let Marie speak here. And that's okay. There's context in it. But if I'm speaking from the part, I can give context. If I'm speaking from the part, then I am the one that has said too much. I don't know what to say. But if I'm speaking for the part, then I can start to say, it's okay. I recognize you, and you're welcome. It's okay to be here.
Yeah. Parts are... so much around parts. So parts visit you. They visit you for a period of time. They come and they go, and they have a particular energy signature about them, because they will come from fear, and judgment. So if you're judging something, you're coming from a part. So this is good things to be aware of. You go, okay, well, how do I know that I'm in self-energy? So the way that they describe self-energy, this is the essence of you. It's the essence of everyone. If we started to look at it from a spiritual lens, we could say this is how consciousness shines through you.
It's the essence of you.
It's the essence, yeah. So, that's why we love this model, is because as much as it speaks to it from a psychological level, you can replace the words with the essence of, this is consciousness having a human experience. Here is self holding space for the parts that feel fear. From a Buddhist perspective, the illusion of Maya. Everything is love. From A Course in Miracles, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. So nothing real can be threatened. So what the essence of you can never be threatened. Everything else is then, in a sense, an illusion. Now, not saying that your experience is an illusion. However, the parts are fearing something. There's the absence of something. Self, spirit. There is not the absence of anything. It's the presence of everything and yet nothing. So we can use that as a bit of a lens for it. So parts visit us, and a beautiful analogy is when we look at the sky. The sky has always been there. The weather rolls in and it rolls out. It might stay there for 4 days. It's been really overcast today. So we could then start to look at what is the weather, what's alive in you at the moment. And this is how we'll greet each other. We go, what's alive in you at the moment? You go, oh, I've got this arising. Okay, well, let's talk to that. And so I'm noticing there's a part of me that wants to say this. So notice the words. I'm noticing there's a part of me that wants to say this.
And just to wind it back just slightly, so the sky is always there,
Yes,
just
thank
as the self is always there.
It's present.
It's always been there. It's always there. It's just that the weather comes in. So the parts come in depending on how many cues of danger come to you.
Yeah, that information.
And I thought it might be worthwhile. One of the things we were going to discuss last session 2 weeks ago was what type of parts you might see in each of the states.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Good reminder.
So when we are in self, when we've had secure attachment and we know the self because we've had another person, a primary caregiver, help us to regulate. And because what it initially needs, that when we're children, we need the wiser, stronger, kinder, co-regular person, find my words, the older, the wiser, stronger, kinder, attachment, primary caregiver, to be the one to show you what self energy is, to help to co-regulate. And so if you have that, then you learn what self energy is and how to recognize it. And we don't need so much of these parts to come up and be the protectors for us. So when you have more cues of safety and you've had secure attachment, then you have all of those qualities of the 8 C's. And we've spoken of this in other videos, but you are coming from a state of curiosity and clarity, and you have compassion for self and for others. You're creative, you're calm, what am I missing here? They're up there.
Courageous.
Courage, yes, you're courageous, yes. Yes.
Confident.
Yes. I've put them up
There
here.
they are.
Yes,
Yeah.
confidence, yes. So you've got all of those qualities about you, and there's others as well. You've got humour and there's an ease, there's peace.
There's joy.
Joy,
play.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So you've got all of those things available to you. If there are cues of danger in the system and we start to slip down the ladder away from ventral vagal and into the sympathetic nervous system, which is the next branch of down the ladder and into threat, what you might see as some of the parts in here is an angry part. My angry part has been very present with me in the last couple of days.
Hello, angry part.
Yes.
Yeah.
You might see parts that want you to get to the gym. And for the first time in literally months, I went to the gym yesterday. Isn't that interesting that it presented at the same time that my angry parts were there? Because when you are in that sympathetic nervous system state, it's telling you to move. You have to do something. So there are people that are workaholics. I don't like labels, but, that exercise all of the time, that achieve. They're brilliant at, now they're running this business and they've got this business and they've got this award and that award. That's coming from parts. So, and it's very helpful and it's very pro-social. So it's very acceptable in the world. But it's coming from parts. It's driven.
And driven by the fear of
not being enough.
Not
Yeah.
being something.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And because otherwise, we go, well, what about motivation? Isn't that a good thing? You know, we get motivated to do things. Well, am I being motivated by fear or am I being motivated because I'm inspired? See, so parts can use particular values to do things. You know, parts can use loyalty. I'm going to stay in this relationship because I'm loyal to this system. Yeah, and see how they'll override other points of evidence to go, this probably isn't the best relationship for me. But that part will keep you there because loyalty is really important. And then it's about, well, what does loyalty mean? Well, I'm a good person. Right. So if you don't do that, then you're a bad person. So see how it's protecting you from being a bad person. Yeah. It's like the skinny fat people, and I'm just using those words because, you know, some people have been overweight and then they'll lose the weight, but they'll always see themselves as the person that they used to be. So I'm dieting, I'm exercising, I'm doing all of these things because I don't want to be that person that I used to be. So it's being driven by fear, the fear of returning. And if I return, then I'm not enough. I am the person that so I haven't really changed. I'm just using a part is using its skill set to keep you safe, to keep you connected. See, so it's about, and this is beautiful awareness around this. Yeah. And once again, parts aren't bad. We're not dissing parts. No bad parts. It's about being aware of what's the value of this part, inquiring into it, speaking for the part rather than from the part. So if I'm speaking for the part, there's a sense of awareness. So when I say I am noticing, there's a part of me that's frustrated at the moment. Yeah? The words that come after I am are what you identify with. I am noticing. So what notices? Awareness notices.
And self notices.
And self
because
notices.
it's that curiosity. It's noticing, and it has its awareness.
Yes.
And then curiosity comes from that. I'm noticing this. Isn't that interesting?
Wow. I wonder. So I wonder. See, there's that. Let's be curious. Whereas I'm really frustrated. Well, I am the part. I am frustrated.
I'm angry.
Yeah. I'm not enough. Everything I do just turns to shit. You know. No, I'm just not heard. I might as well not speak. I don't matter. I'm noticing there's a part of me that thinks it doesn't matter. So once again, notice the difference, space. Yeah.
So we spoke of what self-energy is. We spoke of some of the parts that you might see if you're primarily coming from a sympathetic nervous system state. And when I say primarily, you know, sometimes we can be polarized. Sometimes we have this push-pull that's going on. So at one time, I've got this energy to go to the gym, and that at this other time, I'm just so freaking lazy.
Yeah.
And so that brings me to the other state, is when we are in this dorsal vagal shutdown, some of the parts that we might see there is lazy part, because it's trying to conserve energy, keep you safe by not going out.
Sleepy part.
Sleepy, and even and this can be all along a spectrum, so even to the point of narcolepsy. That's actually a part. It's not, you know, I really love these models because rather than what we call the DSM, the diagnostical
statistics and manual.
Yeah. Which says, you know, you've got this criteria, you've got that criteria, you've got, this is what you are. I think it's really valuable to look at it from the overarching view of a dysregulation of the nervous system. So you are not the diagnosis that you've been given. Somewhere, the nervous system has been under threat, and it presents itself in all sorts of forms. So whether it be a perfectionistic part, or whether it be you've got chronic depression, bipolar. Bipolar, we see it as polarizing parts. We have the one part that wants to get all this stuff done, and I've got another part that wants to shut me down. Yeah, so there's a dysregulation of the nervous system. So we're starting to, and this is coming into the field of psychiatry and an understanding of that it's not always necessarily that it's a diagnosis, that this person's got this condition. If we can look at it from the lens of parts, and that somewhere along the line, the nervous system has become dysregulated and hasn't been taught how to come back into regulation. And so when we can start to regulate the nervous system, it's amazing that these symptoms like OCD, for example, can suddenly, you don't meet criteria anymore. So some of the other parts that you might see in a dorsal vagal shutdown, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. You might see seizures, yes.
FND.
Yes. Yeah. You might see, so depression is a big one because it's suppressing you. It's trying to keep you pushed down. And so with depression, let's talk a little bit about that. So when we've got activation in the system and we can mobilize, we can actually do something. Like, I'm going to get this shit done, yeah? But if the signals of threat is so overwhelming that you cannot move, you do not have a choice, you've got no options, then the system needs to go into survival and conserve energy and shut down. So this is where depression can be seen. Yeah, what else do we see? And there's two different pathways on the dorsal vagal. So you either have like a functional freeze or a submit. And here we can sometimes see even spiritual bypass. Doesn't affect me. No, I'm good. Yeah. I'm beyond all of that.
Nothing touches me.
Nothing touches me.
Nothing touches me anymore. So whenever I hear that, I go, oh, okay.
There's something else. It's a sweeping away of it.
Doesn't even touch. Yeah.
So we've got a little bit of energy in the system, but we're not. So what's happening is we're depressing the emotion. We're depressing the cognition, and a part comes in and goes, doesn't affect me. So we're in that dorsal, we're in that suppression, but it appears as though we're functioning.
And it can be quite a calm state.
Yes.
So that's the tricky thing.
It is, yeah.
Oh, this is really calm.
Yeah.
This is self. I'm calm because I'm not allowing anything to touch me. See? Rather than actually, I'm moving towards everything that is. I'm allowing whatever is to arise to be there, and I can hold it with love. Now that's a very different state, rather than, something's there, but it doesn't impact me, it doesn't touch me. So I've now blocked it, numbed it to a sense.
Yes. Yeah. People pleasing. So this isn't a dorsal vagal; it's the submit.
Submit. Yeah.
Don't be a good girl. Do what you're told.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't rock the boat. No confrontation. Now's not the time. So notice that. Yeah, because that could be really wise. Hey, now's not the time. There's a sense of discernment. But when it's in conflict, when it's this, now's not the time, you know, or we can use the other spiritual bypasses. Oh, everything's perfect.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. So there's an awareness is required to notice the nuance.
Mm.
It's the subtle things, right? It's not about, oh shit, I do that, but I don't know what's going on here. Maybe I am that. So once again, notice your thoughts in what we're saying. Oh, here's an opportunity to arise within you.
Mm.
So this is, once again, meditation helpful, but meditation's dorsal.
Yes, it is dorsal.
And it's a poly state.
It is, but before we move on to that, yes. So I just want to, so that was the more functional, that's the submit. So we've got a little bit of energy in the dorsal, we're not right at the bottom. But if we're in collapse, then that's when we get even right to the extremes of catatonia. Or
mutism.
Mutism. And like even migraine can come. So it's typically a part. We think it's, I haven't drunk enough water, but when it's too overwhelming for the system, like the body cannot say to you, hey, Allison, you've done too much of this. It needs to shut you down because it needs to conserve energy. So a migraine might appear to bring you into conservation.
Yeah, and what happens with the migraine? Light sensitivity. You need to actually close your eyes, go into a dark room, have no one around you, noise. You know, you actually throw up. You know, some people throw up. I have experienced many migraines and know that experience. It is complete shutdown. And yet there's it's so violent though. It's a violent shutdown. Like the head is just squeezed.
So again, just when you're experiencing any of those things, notice what happened before.
Yeah. What was the lead up?
What was the lead up of it? For me, you know, I'm 52 now, and in the last 6 months I have developed hot flushes. Now one could say that, oh, that's just part of menopause. But after a week of this and the work that we do and the noticing, so then it was notice what happened before then. And so when I feel shame, when I feel guilt, when there is anger in the system, the flush comes. So if you get these symptoms, just notice what happened like 30 seconds before, minutes before. And this is the awareness that is needed first before you can do anything about it. Notice what state you are in. And also notice, just be aware that we do fluctuate throughout these states throughout our day. So we're not always going to be in ventral, we're not always going to be in dorsal, we're not always going to be in sympathetic. When you wake up in the morning, you are in dorsal. When you go to bed at night, you are going into dorsal, because it's time to go in and down and conserve energy. When you wake up and then you need to get to the bathroom, there's some sympathetic, there's some mobilization that's happening. When you need to get to work, there's some mobilization in the system, yeah? When you get to work and everybody's, you know, wishes you well because it's your birthday, and it's a bit extreme, but, you know, and you're connecting with everybody and you feel safe and loved, you're in ventral, yeah? And then suddenly, I don't know, something happens at work, you get a phone call, and suddenly you're in anger and you slip into sympathetic nervous system, yeah? The threat gets too much, then you need to go into dorsal. So you'll fluctuate. So the first step is to recognize, where am I at any given point in time? And then you can do something about it. And we won't go into just when I'm aware of time. Yeah. And I know that we did want to let you all know of how to move through these states. Just suffice to say that it is important, we cannot jump from here, dorsal, into ventral vagal. We need to come up the ladder. We need to start to move the system in before we can even think about connecting with others in the world. We find that this is so valuable, this polyvagal theory and the internal family systems model, that we utilize it constantly, all of the time, and we use it in our psychotherapy, and we also will feel that it would be very valuable to run a whole day workshop on this, because there is so much in it, and once you have this information, then you've got it for life, and you can be able to have awareness around it and have compassion for self, have compassion for others, and know really simple tools on how you can shift your state so you're not stuck in that state. If you want to be able to shift it, then there are resources that you can utilize to be able to help you through that. All right. Anything else? You want to do a quick summary?
Because I think there's more in that, and you know, we can certainly open that up. Probably just bring it then back into the non-dual lens.
Yes.
That when we look at parts think that they're separate. They think they're separate to the system, even though they might work with other parts to get stuff done to keep you safe. They think that they're separate. When we come into this world, in a sense, the ego thinks that we're separate to others. Unless you're coming from the perspective of everything is one, you are another self, you are another me. Yeah. When you start to recognise yourself as consciousness having a human experience, Ram Dass says that when you see yourself through the eyes of soul, you see everyone else is another soul. So there's a sense of connection straight away. Oh, hello. Yeah. And even further on, that everything is consciousness. So now I'm connected to everything. So self is connected. Parts are disconnected. Mind, ego, is separate. Self, soul, consciousness is connected. So see the microcosm and the macrocosm. And this is one way that we've found really helpful to come to at least an awareness of the human experience and interact with it on that level. And then maybe for people who find it a little bit hard to understand what the concept of consciousness or what is spirit and what is soul, well, you can use that as a template. You know, this essence of me. Maybe that's the gateway into that. For others who actually have that felt sense that I am consciousness, that I am soul, I am spirit, and I am eternal, then you can start to view life through that lens. And when you start to view life from that lens, you naturally have compassion for everything, because how can I judge another self? I would judging me. I can recognise that these are parts that are being activated in another. See the compassionate nature of this viewpoint.
And the de-shaming.
And the de-shaming, and that's what we love about this. This is a de-shaming model of looking at self. It promotes a loving relationship within self.
And with others.
And then with others, yeah. So much on this topic. We've already shared much on this topic. We just wanted to bring in mainly polyvagal and how it was related to parts, and when you can notice your parts either through the polyvagal lens, or you're noticing the physiology of polyvagal through, oh, hello part, oh, you're really bringing me down. Oh man, I must be in dorsal at the moment. See how it's a really beautiful interchangeable type of way to at least give context to your experience. And who was the one that notices the experience? Self, awareness, whatever word or perception you want to use. Consciousness, yeah. Cool. Thank you for that. We'll stop the recording and then open it up briefly to some questions if you want. Yep.